This is the story of Franz Liszt, the story of the boy who became a great pianist and teacher. This is the house in which was born a little boy who became a famous pianist and a great teacher. This house is in Riding in Hungary. Nowadays there is a little tablet over the door which tells us that Franz Liszt was born in this house on the 22nd day of October, 1811. You remember that once upon a time, Joseph Haydn lived as a court musician in the Esterhazy family. He wore a tie wig and a wonderful bright uniform, for he was master of the music in that great house. Now, long after Joseph Haydn's time, Adam Liszt, father of Franz, lived with the Esterhazys. He was this family steward, having charge of the property, and he too loved music. So we may believe that he told his little boy Franz about the great master Haydn, for Adam Liszt was not only a lover of music, but he also gave his son first lessons in piano playing. Liszt's mother was of German blood. She was born in Lower Austria. Little Franz practiced so faithfully and so eagerly, I'm sure, that when he was only 9 years old, he gave a concert in public. He played so well that some good friends offered to send him to Vienna where he could continue his studies. And so the little boy left home and began the studies that led him to become the greatest pianist of all time. His piano teacher was a man of whom almost everybody knows. Does he not have a round, good-natured face, and does he not look kind? Well, he could be severe when his pupils' lessons did not please him. His name was Carl Czerny. Here is his picture. On New Year's Day of the year that little Franz was 11 years old, he played in public in Vienna. It must have been a wonderful occasion. All the people were there, and among them was the greatest of all, Beethoven. Then Adam Liszt thought his boy should go to Paris. He wished him to become a student in the conservatory there, but its director, Cherubini, refused to admit Franz to the classes. So, like most of us, he studied with a private teacher. Also, he traveled to England and all the countries of Europe giving concerts. His fame was becoming greater, and his playing was the delight of all who heard him. Here are two pictures of Franz as a boy. He dressed differently from boys of today, but do you not think his face is a fine one? Full of light and full of life and full of eagerness? Franz was only 16 years old when his father died. They had been good comrades and had traveled together and talked with one another about music and musicians. The boy must have been grieved keenly over the loss of so good and kind a companion as his father had been. But he went earnestly to work to earn a living for his mother and himself. He knew that many famous people, and we may be sure that they helped him. Here are two of Franz's friends at the time, Victor Hugo and Frederick Chopin. I am sure that you will like to know that how Liszt looked as he sat at the piano. Here he sits now playing. You see, he had only a simple kind of piano, but he mastered it thoroughly so that he could make people wonder at his art. That is what we learn from the lives of famous people. They are always true to their talent. After Liszt had traveled many years over Europe, he had never visited the United States. He became conductor at the court theater at Weimar. This new music work interested him so much that he gave up travel as a concert pianist. He helped many composers by having their operas performed at the Weimar Theater. Some of the operas that had their first performance there are now famous indeed. Among these are Lohengrin, Tannhauser, and The Flying Dutchman by Richard Wagner. Then there was Genoveva and Manfred by Robert Schumann. Also, Alfonso and Estrella by Franz Schubert was given. It would have delighted Schubert's heart if he could have heard of this, but he, poor man, had died some years before. Then Liszt did something else at Weimar that endeared him to hosts of pianists. He held classes and taught the secrets of his wonderful playing to those who were talented and who could understand. He was a soul of generosity. When someone who was gifted but could not pay came for advice, he gave it freely. When concerts did not pay, he himself often took the loss so that others should not suffer. Is it not wonderful to think of a man so loved by the public, giving with such great generosity? Truly, it is better to give than to receive. All good and wonderful things live on forever. Even though Liszt moved on from Weimar, spending his last years in Budapest, Rome, and elsewhere, he was not idle. There was always a circle of people about him, and always his full-hearted, generous nature kept him at work for the good of others. He reminds us of Beethoven, who once said, "Composing is a capital thing. For instance, if a friend is in distress and I have no money to help him at hand, I can sit down and compose something which I can sell and so relieve him." It seems that Franz Liszt thought the same, for he was always helping someone else. We have already seen how Liszt looked at the piano. See the picture, number 12. This is Liszt at the conductor's stand. Do you see his baton on the score on the desk? And the position of the left hand? When Liszt conducted the orchestra, the players watched every moment of his hands and every look of his eyes, so as just to play as he desired. Franz Liszt was kind to all people who came to him. There was one musician, however, for whom he did a great deal. You know him, for he composed many operas. One of them is called Parsifal, another is The Flying Dutchman. Place his picture here and write his name beneath. Someday the operas of Richard Wagner will give you great pleasure. At first, they were not liked by the public. Wagner had few friends and his life was very hard, but Franz Liszt believed in him and in his work, so he helped them. At first, Wagner did not like Liszt. He once said, "I never repeated my first call on Liszt." But by this he meant that he wished the acquaintance to end. When Liszt realized that Wagner did not care to understand him, he tried his best to keep the friendship secure. Liszt never wished to misunderstand another human being, so it was not long before Wagner's opinion of Liszt changed, for he said later, "Though through the love of this rare friend I gained a real home for my art." There is one thing true for all of us. We carry our early thoughts along with us all through life. The friends we make from youth and the thoughts we think from youth are always at hand to bless us if we have done wisely. Once, when little Franz was 13 years old, he played before the English King George IV. 60 years later, we see him again, once more the guest of the English people. It is pleasant to think of Liszt meeting again and again the friends of his boyhood. When he went to England on this occasion, he was quite an old man. As he stepped out upon the stage to play for the last time, everybody, even the people outside the concert hall, who could not get in, shouted themselves hoarse. Those within rose to greet him with tears and cheers that are given only to the kings on the earth. While we know of this artist chiefly as a great pianist, we shall learn, as we grow older, that he was a great composer as well. He wrote music for piano, for orchestra, for the voice. There are symphonies, masses, oratorios, and cantatas. Once as a boy, he met Franz Schubert in Vienna. In later years, he arranged many of Schubert's songs in a truly beautiful way for the piano. Songs like The Earl King, Thou Art My Peace, and Hark, Hark, the Lark. So we may end by saying that Franz Liszt was a great man who remained simple and big-hearted all his life, and one whom the world loved for what he did. This is Liszt's handwriting.